All right, we're gonna do another Scrimba challenge, and it's just gonna be practicing conditional rendering. So the challenge is, if there is no red messages display, you are all caught up. If there are more than 0 unread messages, display you have n unread messages. So if there's exactly one message, it should read message singular. Okay. So let's give this a shot. So first of all, I think we can put this in a paragraph tag. And we're going to have to use the messages state. So what we can do here is we can wrap this in curly braces. We can say messages and this message here. So I think we can do a little bit better than this. So I'm going to just add something in here real quick. I'm going to say going to add this, and then I'm going to check for messages, and if messages is true, then I'm going to say you have, and we could even put this inside of these braces instead. So here I'm going to say you have, and then I'm going to use the messages dot length, and what I'm basically saying here is I'm checking for the state of messages, and the state is going to be these two array items. And we're basically going to say if messages is true, then I want to say you have, and then messages.length. So I want to check the length of this array, and that's how many messages I have. So I want to say you have that many messages unread. And then otherwise, I want to go ahead and say, and I'll put this in these tags, you are all caught up. So otherwise, if this was empty, I can say, or oh, it's saying you have 0 messages. And I think it's saying that because we're checking for messages. And if it's not true, actually that's weird. Why does it say that instead of you are all caught up? So if messages is true, we run this. If messages is false, we should be running the other one. That's really weird. Let's go ahead and say if there is exactly one unread message. Ooh, that one's kind of weird too. So what we can do here is, and I feel like I could use if-else statements here as well. Let me do this first. I think this would be a lot easier with an if-else statement. So if, and we can say let message, and we can say if message, we can go ahead and say, message equals you have, and then we can take the messages dot length unread, and we're looking for if messages here, and then we can say else if messages equals 1, messages equals you have, and then we'll say the messages dot length message, and then our final statement is going to say message equals, and this will check you are all caught up. So now that we have all of that here, I think all we have to do is place in our message. And now we have 2 unread messages. And then let me remove this. And if we read just A, you have 1 unread. That's so weird. That is really weird. Okay. So you have 0 unread. Okay. That is weird. That's some weird stuff here. Okay. So if there are no unread messages, display you are all caught up. So, okay, I'm going to try something else here. And then let's see how this works. So we're going to wrap this in some curly braces. And we're going to say messages. Okay, if that's true, we'll run this. If that's false, then we'll run this. So if it's true, then we'll run you have messages then we'll run messages dot length. So we'll go ahead and run that. And then if it's false, and I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, so you have 2 unread. Otherwise, if it's false, then we'll say you are all caught up. So now let's go ahead and say this is false. It's saying you have 0 unread. I don't know why that's happening. That's so weird. So I'm gonna wrap this in curly braces real quick. Wrap this in curly braces, and then we can go ahead and comment this out real quick. I just want to see why this is happening, because this is really weird behavior. Because it's saying if messages here, if this is true, then we're going to run this P. But if it's false, we're supposed to read something completely different. But something that's weird, if messages, let's say, is greater than 0. So, okay, I think I understand what was going on here. So what we were reading for was, and I'll explain this in a second. Oh, it's saying you are all caught up. So if messages is greater than 0, you have this many messages. Otherwise, if it's anything, if messages is less than 0, you are all caught up. No, that's not what I want. It's saying you're all caught up. That's really weird. So let's say dot length is greater than 0. So if it's less than 0, so if the messages array length is greater than 0, we'll go ahead and run this message. Otherwise, we'll run a different message. All right, so yeah, I had to pause for a second, but I knew what mistake I was making. So I needed to check for the length of the actual array. So the thing is, when we just check for the array being true, it just seemed not really to work. And when we checked for the array's length being greater than 0, meaning there's 2 elements in our array, then we load up the correct message. And when we take it away, we also load up the correct message. So now we can do some conditional rendering here. So let me think here. So if there's exactly 1 message, then it should just read out message. So what I want to do here is I want to say unread messages. Didn't add that in there. So what I can do here is I can wrap this, and I can say if messages dot length is equal to z, or no, dot length. This is like really bad for reading. Message, otherwise we'll say messages. This is really bad for readability. Message. So you have 2 unread messages. You have 1 unread message. So this works, but I can't lie, it seems like it would be a little bit unreadable. So I feel like a developer would be able to read this no problem, but I don't know. I feel like if we had a lot of context, it would be really hard to read. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to fix this one up here. Try to make it a little bit more simple. So we're going to say let message, then we're going to say if the messages dot length is greater than 0, we are going to say message is going to equal to a string saying you have, and then we'll get the messages dot length unread messages, and then we'll say else if messages dot length equals 1, then we'll say our message will equal you have, and then we'll take the message length. We'll say messages dot length unread message, because it's singular, and then we'll say else. So we'll say message equals, and then you are all caught up. So I think this is a lot easier to read in my opinion than this. So what I'll do here is I will go ahead and put this inside of a paragraph. So paragraph, and then we should just get our message, and I'm noticing I could have just uncommented. So we have 3 messages. Now it should say 2. Now it should just say message. And what I'm noticing is that it's not working. So this bottom one is not working for some reason. So we're saying if the length is equal to 1, meaning there's only 1 element, our message should read you have 1 unread message without the S. So something is going on here in our else if statement, or our if else statement. So let me see if everything here is correct. So it's not running that second one. So what I'm thinking, it's saying, okay, boom, so message.length is greater than 0. And we already met this condition, so we're just going to run this. So maybe if I change this direction here, so if I put this here, so first, let me see, message, yep, so that's what was going on. So what was happening here is that we're going to the if statement, and we're saying if messages length is greater than 0, then just run this. But we first have to check to see if the array is equal to 1. And if it's equal to 1, then we want to run this. Otherwise, if it's not equal to 1, but it is greater than 0, then we want to run this message. And otherwise, if it's not equal to 1 and it's not greater than 0, then we know the array is empty, and we want to go ahead and say we're all caught up. So that's how I would do it, using both the ternary and the if-else statements. I can read this one again. So basically, we're going to say the messages.length, And if that is greater than 0, we're going to run this string right here. So we're going to run you have messages.length unread messages. So if we have an A in here, it's going to say you have 1 unread. And then we go into another ternary that's going to say the messages.length. If that is equal to 1, then we'll read message. Otherwise, then we'll read messages. And that's not really that readable. But if we have no messages, and we'll just say we're all caught up. I'm wondering if there's an easier way to do this. It's not the most readable way because we're saying, yeah, I don't love the readability on this one. This is a lot more readable, but maybe I'm just doing it in a way that's not ideal when using ternaries. But I mean, otherwise, I think we solved the challenge. So I'll go ahead and watch the video and maybe I'll update at the end. All right, so yeah, that solution was pretty accurate, but I want to go ahead and go into the conditional rendering quiz and just do this on the same video. So what is conditional rendering? So what I believe conditional rendering is when you're rendering things on the screen based on a condition. So when we're using state and we want to render, let's say, a text of you have 1 dog if state is true, and then you have 0 dogs if state is not true. So conditional rendering is just rendering something onto your screen based on the condition of something. So when would you use the AND operator? So from my experience, what you would use the AND operator for is when you're trying to do something like render, let's say, like a paragraph. So if we wanted to render a paragraph, and let's say we were checking the state of, like, say, has dog, we would say and then we would render this paragraph, and we would say Jack has a dog. And basically, if has dog was false, Jack would not have a dog, so it would not run this paragraph right here. So that's kind of an instance where we would use the AND operator. The ternary would be somewhat different. So the ternary would be like almost like saying has dog is true. So if has dog is true, and we can run this message, but instead of using a ternary to go ahead and say, let's say this is what runs when it's true, and this is what runs when it's false, we would just go ahead and use the AND operator because it would be a lot easier. So what we would do is just use our AND operator. So if has dog is true, and we'll run this paragraph, and then we can say Jack has, and then this is where you would use the ternary. So I think the ternary would be like saying Jack has, and then you could go in here and use a ternary and almost be like Jack has, and then we can just check the condition of something. And I think that's how you would use it. So the ternary, let's say Jack has, and I'm trying to think of a situation where you would need the ternary. We can just say, I'm trying to think of something here. Let me look back at an example real quick. So and then it would be like this punchline here. So like, let's say Jack has, and I'm trying to think, like, should we say he has multiple dogs? Or let's say his breed. So let's say breed equals, let's say, a golden, and we'll just say golden for golden retriever. And if that's true, then we'll say he has a golden something, golden dog. And then if that's false, we can just say another breed. And that's kind of like how we would use the ternaries. So we're rendering the paragraph based on if Jack has a dog or not. And then we are rendering the breed that he has based on the fact of whether or not he has a golden retriever. And if he does, we'll just say golden dog. And if he does not, we'll just say another breed. So that's kind of like how they would be used together. So this if else, almost if else statement, that's kind of what a ternary is, would be used to render something specific. And then the AND operator, I guess it would just be used to render elements onto the screen based on a condition being true or false. So number 4, what if you need to decide between greater than 2 options on what to explain? Wait, what? What if you need to decide between greater than 2 options on what to display? I don't even know what he's asking here. What if you need to decide between greater than 2 options? So I think what he's saying, oh, if we need to decide on greater than 2 options, then I think what he's saying here is that we would just use if else statement, because we can just say if else and then else if, and then we could do that, and then we can say else if, we can do that, and then we can just say else. Whereas if we were using the ternary, we would have to say, let's say, like something like breed equals golden. You'd have to say this is what we want to run on true, and then this is what we want to run on false. And I think with ternaries, the way we nest them would be like this. Not entirely sure. I think it would be like this, and then we would have to keep doing like this, I believe. And this is just a lot less readable. So like this would be like if else, else if. I'd have to look at that again, but I mean, anyway, like I think this would be a lot easier to read than what I just did. And I'm not sure if that's how you do the else if statements with the ternaries, but this is just a lot easier. And then we can just put like a message here and then check for the state of something. And then if that is true, then we can just say the message equals something else, and then we would just render that message. So if we need to decide between more than 2 options on what to display, I think an if else statement would be a lot better to use. And I think that's what he's asking here, but I'll go ahead and play the video and see what he says. All right, so I'm back and I just finished both of the challenges. So now I want to do a real world application of conditional rendering. So I don't know why I'm talking so low, but what I basically want to do is I want it to where when I click on the icon or the image, I want it to open a modal. And I was looking at the coding with Ania, or code with Ania, and she has a course now which I kind of wanted to try and take, but it's too expensive. So I really like the modal she built here. So I was like, I'm going to take inspiration from her modal, and it's not going to be exactly the same, but that's what inspiration is for, right? So what I want to go ahead and do is I want to use the toggle visited. Instead of it being on the image, I want it to be on this this div. So I'm not sure if I should keep the images as is and then use the div to toggle whether or not I've been to the place. But I think if I do this here on click, when I click on this div, anywhere in the div, it should go ahead and blacken the picture out for me. And then when I click on the picture, it should give me more information. I'm not sure how I should do this. Yeah, I'm not really sure how I should do this. I actually kind of like the idea of clicking on the picture to change the picture, and then clicking on the div to go ahead and open up our modal. So I'll probably just keep it like that. So what I'm going to have to do here is first of all create the modal, and I'm going to have to conditionally render it, and I'm probably going to have to use state. So in my messages, I think I'm going to pause real quick and get my message real quick. All right, so I have my message now, and it's funny, like I've been using this little notepad here for a while, so it has like stuff from like JavaScript. So what I want to do is make a modal using conditionally rendering. If you need to look back on how you hid and showed the answers when working on the jokes project, what you could do is, instead of hiding and showing the paragraph, you could hide and show a modal pop-up in your travel journal so that you can either open up an image or talk about your experience and what you did in those locations. So I wrote that down before or after I ended my project, and that was just to make sure that I remembered what to do. So we can go ahead and say cursor pointer here. And now when I go ahead and hover this, we're going to get the cursor pointer, and that's just to show me that, hey, we can go ahead and do some modifications. So, or we can go ahead and open a modal. So I want to look back at my conditional rendering practice, was it? So you have this blank messages. So yeah, I was thinking I could probably do this with a prop. So let me see here. And I'm not sure if this is the best way to do it, but it's the way I know how to do it now. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. So the way we conditionally rendered this H3 is the way I was thinking about conditionally rendering a modal pop-up. So we can go, first of all, make our modal pop up. So we can just say modal.jsx, and then we can export default a function of modal, and then we can return a div, and we can say this div is going to be an h1, and it's going to say hi, and the class name is going to be a background of white, and then we can say text black, and then we can say, let's say height h. We're going to say our height is going to be about 300 pixels, and our width is also going to be about 300 pixels. So it's going to be absolute positioning, and this is just so we can get it into the center. So top 0, left 0, right 0, left 0, M auto for margin auto. Then I already did that. I think what I was missing was bottom 0. And we can go ahead and render this onto our screen now. So we can import our modal. So import our modal from our modal.jsx, and then we can go ahead and push in our modal here, and we get our modal right in the middle. So let me make some modifications. So let me say 500 by 500, and we'll have to work for mobile as well. I don't know why. Okay, so we can say flex, and then justify center, and then items center. And I just want to make sure this is working how I want it to work. So we could have did that up here. So we're just gonna I'll keep it down here. And then we can say font, or it's text to Excel, 5XL. So we have our high here. What I can do is background slate 300. And then I want to make this rounded medium, or let's just say large. I kind of want to see what she did for hers. So Yeah, that's a pretty big round. And one thing that I don't know how to do, and this is something that would be pretty helpful to do now, is to learn how to make the background kind of like almost to make the background what's the word for it, darker. So our modal's on the top and our background should be darker. Another thing is, how do I make my modal kind of stay to the screen? So one thing, let's go ahead and work on the responsive view. So we want it to be 90% by 50%. So 50% of our screen and 90%. So let's go ahead and say 85 instead. That's not 85. What about, okay, that's the height. So the height needs to be about 50% and the width is wrong here. So let's do that. Width can be about 90, or we could, yeah, I think 90. We can get away with 90. And then let's go to our iPhone 5. I think we can say 95. And then our height, let's just say it's going to be about 70%. And then let's look at the other sizes. Okay. And I think what we can do is make whatever it's nested in relative. So if we go here, we can probably say class name relative. And now it's relative. Okay, and that changes everything. So let's go ahead and make this height a little bit shorter. So we can say about 40. Oh, that's weird. Let's say the height is about 20. And let me see what it looks like here. So the height can be 30. And then let's say 40. Let's give it some max height. So we can say max height, or let's work on the max width first. So max width is going to be, let's say 500 pixels. Actually, let's go up a little bit. Let's go to about 800 pixels. So that's going to be the max width that it'll grow to. And then we can say the max height. I think we can keep the max height at about 40%. So let's go back into mobile view real quick, just to make sure we're good. Oh, that is pretty tall. So we might need a max height for the mobile devices. So we'll say the height is 40 on small devices. And then on the regular, we'll go ahead and say it's about 20%. And that will not change it in our desktop view, but when we go into our mobile view, it should change. Yep, it should change. And one thing I want to do, let me see if this will bring it up. No, that will not bring it up. So let me see here. So this is going to be relative. And then, because it's in the middle of the screen. I don't want it to be in the middle of the screen. I want it to kind of follow. I don't really know how to build a modal for mobile. Never had to do that. So we can say top, let's say 10. Bottom, we'll say about 20 pixels. .500 pixels. But when we scroll down, that's the thing. How do I make my modal move with the screen? That's what I'm trying to figure out here. Guess we're going to have to do some YouTubing here or some research here. So let's see how to make modal move according to the screen CSS. We need to find out how to make our modal how to make modal and center the screen due to absolute positioning. Okay, so I created a modal for my framework, created everything. Is that I can't make it center and responsive. I don't think that's the problem we're having. Make modal move in CSS. Modal window for your website. Let's see. Oh man, this is YouTube. I don't want to risk any copyright strike. Create modal with HTML, CSS. Let's see. Well, one thing I can look up is how to make the background of a modal dark. How to make background behind a modal dark. How to use, okay, this is probably what we'll need. Let me see what, okay. Modal container. Wow, this is a lot of CSS. Okay, hold on. So setting up, yep, that's fine. So body, okay. Boom. This is just how to flip it on and off. Dang, what? How's he doing that? Okay. So let's see, return to CSS. I think I did this, or I think this was done in like a JS deep dive. Let me see JS deep dive Scrimba. I think this has already been done. I want to see how they set it up. So let me go to my Not Hacker News, Google Keep clone. So let's go down to storing notes. Let's run this real quick. Say test. And then when we open it up, it kind of blurs the background. So I need to go to my modal. I need to go to the modal here and see how they did it. So opacity. And then also I can go to my own project and see how I did this. So let me go to GitHub real quick, since I haven't done it in so long, and then go to my public and go to book collector. I want to see if I did it on this book collector. And then I loaded it up here, view deployment, add a book. Okay, I didn't do it. I probably didn't end up being able to do it. View stats is there, add book. This was actually one of my funnest projects ever. Yeah, this was so fun. So we done, delete. Wow, that was such a fun project with just vanilla. Okay. Let's see. So what I'm trying to do here is make this modal background. Modal, open modal. Let's see, so the position is actually fixed. So let me say fixed. And I have so many things open now. I'm going to close this. I'm going to leave that open. I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So position fixed. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's activate mobile view real quick. So this is exactly what I wanted. So we'll say the height was 20%. So I think I don't need this height here anymore to be this weird value. So I think I can say 50% of the screen, and then now it will move with my screen. So it'll always be in the center. That's exactly what I wanted. Yep, this is exactly what I wanted. So the width, let's say it's 90%. I think that width was a little bit crazy. The height, we can say 60%. And let's just look at this on some different views. So mini, that's good. 12, that's good. 12 Pro Max, that's good. Let's go back here. And then we're gonna give it a max height as well. Max height. And we'll just say 500 pixels. Let's say 600. Honestly, it doesn't look bad at 800 by 800. But yeah, now that it's actually doing what I wanted to do. That's awesome. So glad I checked back. So the Z index is 200 top with height background color. So maybe that's what I know. Background color is that white. And then we have transform, scale, transition. Is there any transition here? Let me go to the Tailwind CSS doc. And I want to see if I can give it like a transition. And then I don't know why Google still takes me back to the old one. So let's say transition property. So transition all, transition opacity. And we won't get to see this in action until maybe if we say hover transition opacity. No. Okay, that's fine. I don't think we're gonna get to see how that goes until we actually try to click out and into it. So what I want to do is give it that background, the modal content. So the modal content is what holds that. Let me change this here to black. Okay, so that is changing the background. So the modal is changing the background. So I think I need to wrap this in another div, is what I'm thinking. And then we can say this is a background of slate. Let's give it a class name of background slate 400. And then we're going to give it a height of screen. That's weird. Why is nothing happening? Width 200 pixels. Height 200 pixels. And then we'll say this is relative. Absolute. Is this just not? Okay. Absolute. And then this is going to be top 0, left 0, bottom 0, and then right 0, margin auto. Oh shoot. M auto. And then this is going to be Z of 10, Z0. Actually, it actually might work. So let me say 900 width, and then the height is going to be 900. And this still works, and the back still works as well. So let's just say height is going to be screen, and then the width height of screen. And maybe I need to say 100% of the width and 100% of the height. So I think that's good. And then we can say background And let me see what we used here. So we used background color, background color. So background black, we can say background transparent because I want to see what this is going to do. So let's say background transparent. It's going to make it transparent, but could I make it to where I don't need that right now? Could I make it like, do they have any color for that? Let's see. So let's go here. The background's black, exactly what we wanted, but now I want it to be kind of like a transparent black background. Background transparent. No, we're still not going to be able to see anything. It's just going to be gray. Never did this in Tailwind, so we might run into some issues here. How to make background. Okay. RGBA. So we can say background black and then 500 by 25. See what that does. That does nothing. Let's go back here. Let's say background is going to be this. Okay, that doesn't work either. Focus, opacity, that's what I need to see. Opacity. Opacity, okay, let's say, or what we could do is say background black. Background black. And then we can say the opacity of 5. No, because that changes the opacity of everything. Okay, I need to change just this, so I may not be able to do this in Tailwind. Let's say RGBA. Is there not an easier way to do this in Tailwind? While it's possible to control the alpha values only supported in Firefox at this time. Ooh, that's no good. I'll be honest. I'll probably just say background. Or let's just say faded background. And maybe this isn't the best way to do it, but that's just how I'm going to do it right now. So dot faded background. And let's just say the background color is black. Boom. So now we are just going to get this. And we're going to put that on there. And we got it. Okay. So I do want this to be a little darker though. So yeah, let me see how hers looks. Yeah, hers is really dark. Because I want the user to pay attention to the modal that they just opened. Oh, well, yeah, we can move it all the way down here. but we would have to move it like this. I think this is pretty good. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. So now what's cool is that we can say the background here is going to be white because that's what we wanted. And now we can kind of use it how we wanted to use it. And we're going to pass in some props here because we're going to pass in a lot of data. And there's some data we are going to want to pass here. Let's go to our location map. Let's put this all the way back here. And let's see what we're passing in for our location map. So our location map is getting key. We're getting the visited. Visited is the location data. Okay. I'm going to have to think through this real quick because I want to say const modal and then set modal. And then I want to use react.use state, and this is going to be false by default. So when I go here and when I say modal and modal, it's not going to show. But when I say true, it will show. So that's exactly what we want happening here. But one problem that we're going to have is how do we pass the data from the visited? So we have this through the location map right now. We have our location data. We still have our location map here. So we have our location data. Trying to think here. So how did I do that here? Locations mapped. And did we do this? We did not do this in our return statement, did we? Because we're going to have to open a modal, different modal for each. So let me say locations mapped. Locations equals location data dot map and then location or locale. And what we're going to want to do is render a brand new modal. I don't know if that's what we're going to want to do here. And then, yeah, I don't know if that's what we want though, because we want to, yeah, no, this isn't going to work. How about we make the modal actually work first? So we want to handle a function that's going to toggle our modal. And we want to basically say set modal is going to take the previous state and equal it to not the previous state. And then we can go ahead and, because this is tricky too. Because our location map, what is our location map rendering? What if we import our modal here? Modal.jsx. I think this is gonna render out a bunch of different modals. What error are we getting here? We're only gonna be able to render one modal. Okay. Let me see here. We're gonna have to pass this twice. I don't want to do this, but we're gonna have to say handle click header. No, we're gonna have to say handle click equals then toggle modal. And then we're gonna have to say handle click is gonna equals to props dot handle click. And then we're gonna have to go into our location and let me see if I can console.log our props. Let's see here. So we have our handle click. So now we can I give it a min height? I think this should get a min height because this isn't doing what I want it to do. So let's go to the modal here and let's say our min height. Well, no, because that's just acting responsive. So we can just forget about that for now. So we have our props dot handle click, and that's gonna flip the state of the modal. Now we can just say on click, but on click of what? So I think it will do this div. So on click, we're gonna props dot handle click. Oh, but hold on. That's the thing. Ooh, that's gonna be kind of hard to get past because we can say false. When we click it, it'll be true, but we won't be able to re-click. So we'll have to pass modal a handle click equals to toggle modal. And inside of our modal, we'll have to, let's say, close modal. And this is going to be an on click. And then it's going to be props dot handle click. So now we can open and close our modals. So I think for better purposes, we're just going to say X. So, and then we'll say cursor pointer. Time is it? Okay, it's getting pretty late. So yeah, now we can close and then we should be able to flip these. Every one of these should be able to go ahead and open its modal. Now we have to load up the modal with the correct props. And that's going to be hard because I'm iterating over locations mapped and I'm getting the locate, and that's where I'm getting the items from. So I would need to get items into another, and I don't know if this is going to load up 6 separate modals. So I need to find a way to get my items into my modals. Okay. So let's try something real quick. So we can take away whatever console log we have. I don't think we have a console log. Okay, so we'll just start from fresh. And we'll say const locations equals location data dot map locale, and we'll go ahead and console.log our locale, and we get all of our locations. So what happens when we run this right here instead? And down here, we run locations. When we click, we're not getting our modal. No, that's not going to work. What if we say const locations? What if we do it down here? Dang, this is difficult. Okay. How am I gonna do this? Let's see. Trying to think through this. So we get all of our things, but I don't think we're getting the state. But we don't need the state right now. So this is where I have this. This is just going to return a div of locations mapped. Let's see. So if I did this, move this into here, and move this down here, could I get something like import modal from modal.jsx and then go here and say modal? It wouldn't render up 6 modals, would it? I don't think it would. So, and then here I can toggle my modal from locations mapped. Nope, wrong thing. So I can toggle my modal from here, and then I can use my state over here, and then I can remove this. Remove this from here. I'm getting errors here. Toggle modal is not defined. So let me go here and let's say instead do this. So we're getting our modal state. We can toggle our modal state from here. We're doing the set modal. And then we're going to say our handle click is not that anymore. So it's going to be toggle modal, meaning we have to change it here to props.handle click. What are we getting here now with the error? Toggle modal is not defined. So let's see. Toggle modal, we don't have to put that here anymore. So now we're getting this. Our modal works still, which is a good sign. You can clear this out. So now I need to figure out how I'm going to get these props from each of the locations. And maybe I don't have to. Okay, hold on. Maybe I don't have to. So maybe I can just get it a different way. So let's say, I'm trying to think, how do I render things on the screen here? With props, and then we have .items.country. So we're getting it through our items. So what if we got, okay. So toggle the modal, that works correctly. But now each one of them need to have their own toggle. Yeah, this is going to be weird. So we're getting the locations mapped here. Modal mapped equals, and then let's just copy this. And then let's say modal instead. And we can run here and just say boom. This shouldn't work anymore. And instead we can just say modal mapped. Ooh, that's not what I wanted. So let's see. Let's inspect, see what we're getting here. So I need the handle click, toggle modal. Let's see here, props.handle click. Should be closing though. We have the key. We don't need to toggle visited. And then we don't need that. Let's say items. So let me see if I can reference stuff like that anyways. So props dot items. I think we need items still, right? Items. Let's try to get something like the name. Helen, Georgia. Okay. So now we just need to figure out why it's doing that dark thing. So it's opening the modal for Helen, Georgia. And then let's see, handle click is going to be toggle modal, modal mapped, visited. It's going to take the location data. We're not using modal anymore. What was I using modal for before though? The modal is changing the state, but we are using it. So we're going to say here, we're going to run a ternary here. We're going to say, oh, wrong thing. We're going to say modal and boom. So we can't do ternaries here. Return. No, that's not going to work. Okay. If modal dang it, that's closer. That's closer to what we need. So I'm saying if modal. So if modal is true, we can return the modal with the key of the locate ID and then the items, so locate.items, but when we click on different ones, it doesn't give me different ones. Sheesh. Okay, so let me see here. I don't think we can put a class name on that. Can we? I forgot what we had earlier. Let me see what we had earlier. Don't need that here. And then we don't need the state here. I'm having two issues. So one of them is when I run, we don't get our different things. And then also the background is not doing what it needs to do. This is just going to think it's a component. So when we run our modal, we'll run this. Let's say, what if it was background green? Would this even do anything? That would do absolutely nothing. So background, what if it was like slate 800? So now, okay. Faded black. So we can go here, we can say faded black. And it's giving me this really just not faded color at all. Okay, I think that fixed it. Oh man, is that changing everything now? No, it's not. Okay. So we can move this up. Okay, yeah, that's still working correctly. Oh, that's too dark. That's even darker, isn't it? No, it's not. Okay, we'll go with that. So that's what's happening now. So let me make a P here. That's an X. And let's just say this is a flex. And then let's just say flex column. So this is going to be the on click instead. So when you click on Georgia, it won't do anything. Last name, pointer, cursor. I think that's what that needs to do, right? No. Pointer. Cursor, pointer, cursor, pointer. And then this can not be cursor pointer anymore. Okay, and then this will close it. This will open it, close it. Okay, and then we're getting our props items. So let me see what we're getting from that. Props. So our props is returning to us items. And items is only returning to us one item. So I wonder if we'll have to do something similar to the set visited. Okay. So we'll have to say previous state dot map, and then our previous state. No, that's not going to work because it's just saying true or false. Okay, hold on. Let's just start toggling. So yeah, that's a weird little issue right there. So we're only getting back one of the items. So let me see what happens when we console.log locate. We get all 5 back. Okay. Let's go into our location real quick. And I just want to run some props and see what we're getting. No, we don't even... What? Okay, yeah, we do have props. So our items. We're getting back ID of 2. And then we're getting back ID of 1. 1. 2. 2. 3. Okay. Okay, this is weird. I didn't think it was going to be this weird. Let's refresh. And we know we're getting all of it. Let's see what the difference is. So const locations map, const modal map, we're going to visit, then we're going to locate. We're going to run this. Say if modal. So if modal is true, we're going to open our modal. It's going to have keys.